At the end of the planning, exercising, and training session, you should have a much better understanding and be able to apply training and exercising principles that develops the knowledge, skills, and abilities to implement the business continuity of operations plan. At the end of this session, you should have that understanding of the characteristics of a formalized training and exercise plan, one that can fit any size business in just about any sector of the community. We will review a guide that can be used to ensure your training program has employee buy-in and the support of the executive team. We'll also then look at the different types of training exercises and their relative complexity and resource commitment. And then finally, you should have a sense of where the training program is situated in the company and how it's integrated with other strategic business units within the company to ensure business continuity during times of disruptions. First of all, the training program addresses 4 components of any business. First, the people, or the human resources. They are expected to act a certain way when implementing the business continuity plan. Secondly, the physical plant, or the facility. A facility has certain characteristics that dictate how the business continuity plan is implemented. Thirdly, every business has certain systems or processes that require attention and protection in times of emergency. And finally, most businesses have critical partners outside of the public sector that include suppliers, clients, vendors, and others that are critical for business continuity. The training program is meant to coordinate multiple exercises that are designed to develop coherence in the company's emergency response plan. The training project manager is responsible for several key elements that can ensure company resiliency. They not only design and develop various training initiatives, they also are responsible for the actual exercise. This way, they are in a position to evaluate training exercises in terms of goal achievement and are able to address and communicate lessons learned and other company planning improvements. Not only do they develop their own planning teams and conduct planning meetings, but training project managers also develop training timelines and establish milestones for reports back to the executive team. Managing a training program is a lot like the planning process. A training initiative is not an end in and of itself. The exercise cycle has 4 interrelated phases. Number 1, the design and development of training exercises. Number 2, conducting those training exercises. Number 3, evaluating performance and assessing goal achievement. And number 4, improvement planning. All of the phases are necessary to get the benefit of resiliency out of the training program. The training program is based on what is referred to as progressive exercising. Progressive exercising builds coherence into the training program, where a scalable approach uses less complex exercises to build toward a more complex, multifaceted training exercise. As the program advances to more complex exercises, several benefits are shown to develop. First, personnel begin to recognize that more than a passing attention is given to their safety and well-being and perceive exercise in a positive light. Secondly, their skills improve, making for an effective and efficient response when the situation calls for it. These factors contribute to overall confidence in the organization, and employees recognize they are part of a community within the organization. Finally, a progressive exercise program instills confidence and trust in the important company stakeholders and executive team, thereby facilitating the allocation of resources toward business continuity. The training and exercise program needs a planning team that determines training and exercise objectives, what is to be evaluated, and controls the execution of simulations and exercises. For small companies, the planning team may consist of a minimal number of employees, while large companies may have representatives from multiple strategic business units. The planning team holds all of the responsibilities for training and exercises, including developing objectives, scenarios, evaluation criteria, and after-action reviews. They also plan for all of the logistical needs and create and disseminate pre-exercise materials. Ultimately, the planning team is also responsible for communicating back to the leadership through after-action reviews with suggestions for corrective action, if they are indicated. Many times, and especially when the planning team consists of representatives of multiple business units, the planning team is led by the lead exercise planner, a person that has considerable experience in the company and one that is very familiar with the emergency operations plan. For the next few minutes, we'll look at an easy step-by-step guide to developing and conducting training exercises. So what follows is a business continuity specific step-by-step guide for training employees. If the company has a human resources department, it is important to get them on board initially, especially if the training division is situated in HR. Exercise planners, if not already part of HR, must explain the business continuity plan and what is to be accomplished through the training initiative. A needs assessment provides valuable information when it comes to training the business continuity plan. For example, are employees even aware there is a business continuity plan? If not, the training may merely be designed to introduce the basic aspects of the business continuity plan. Otherwise, there may be specific aspects of the BCP that need practice. For example, if the company intends to utilize text messages to notify employees of business disruptions, perhaps an exercise that stresses crisis communications procedures is indicated. Also, the needs assessment may indicate certain critical individuals that need special resources or have critical functions that require an added level of redundancy to ensure the business continuity plan is effectively and efficiently implemented. Once the first steps are completed, it's time to get the executive team on board, and that's if the initiative did not already come from executive orders. Obviously, for large companies, the Chief Operating Officer is probably already aware of the business continuity plan, but that can't be assumed for all executive leadership. So plan a meeting with principal officers to increase awareness of the business continuity plan and what the training initiative is proposing. At this point, be ready for some healthy disagreement as to what constitutes a primary mission essential function and a business function that is not necessarily primary. What constitutes a primary mission essential function is typically left for the chief executives, but training and exercise planners have a much more strategic and tactical perspective that executives can rely on. Once the training initiative is approved by senior leadership, it's time to meet with the strategic business units that will be involved in the training. Department managers or program directors have a unique perspective that exercise planners can use to make the training specific and relevant to employees and the business continuity plan. Managers and directors may also be able to contribute benchmarks, descriptions, and other usable information that helps the planning team design the exercise. They also have a more tactical perspective than when it comes to identifying the primary mission essential functions, as well as the resource needs of employees and the exercise. For some of the largest companies and small companies alike, a meeting with line personnel is necessary to get a, quote, boot on the ground, close quote, perspective. Not only does this meeting increase awareness of the plan itself, it also reinforces to employees the value of business continuity of operations. When major disruptions affect business continuity, it is typically the line personnel that suffer the greatest impact. This reassurance goes a long way to ease the minds of the employees. Finally, company-wide coherence of what constitutes a primary mission essential function is another benefit of the meeting with line personnel. So, now it's time to develop an exercise. And there are several different types of exercises. Some as simple as a conversation across the table about specific components of the business continuity plan. Others can be extremely complex, requiring extensive planning and the involvement of a multitude of business units. We'll look at each of them in terms of their complexity and their requirements. Of the types of training exercises listed here, The least complex types are the tabletop exercise and the seminar. While there are planning issues with these types of training, they do not necessarily require the involvement of multiple business units and require extreme logistical support. Increasing in complexity, single and multi-unit drills, workshops, and other discussion-based exercises can require logistical support and more planning than seminars or tabletop exercises. Finally, the most complex types of training initiatives are functional exercises, or games, or even full-scale exercises. For an example of a full-scale exercise, follow the link to the Omaha World Herald article dated September 23, 2017. Exercises may also be organized topically by what they require from participants. Discussion-based exercises include seminars, some types of workshops, tabletop exercises, and some simple games. The degree of complexity obviously depends on what is to be accomplished and the number of participants. Operations-based exercises include single and multi-unit drills, functional exercises, and the full-scale exercise. The process to develop these exercises are basically the same. The differences lie in the objectives of the exercise, the number of participants, and the logistical requirements. So when to use which exercise? Well, discussion-based exercises are ideally used to familiarize participants with the current policies and/or procedures and increasing awareness of the business continuity plan. Typically, the discussion-based exercises can be used to identify areas for improvement, which may lead to new policies, procedures, and a more refined business continuity plan. Operations-based exercises, on the other hand, provide the added benefits of actually deploying people and equipment in a safe and controlled environment, which is meant to improve individual and team performance of skills. While they are far more complex, drills, functional and full-scale exercises require the activation and execution of plans, procedures, and sometimes mutual aid agreements. This practice tends to clarify organizational, team, as well as individual duties, roles, and responsibilities. So never lose sight of the intent of the exercise program, and that is to enhance resiliency and maximize business continuity. The final section of this session situates training and exercises in the context of overall continuity of business operations. The first thing we must reinforce is that the training and exercise program has a purpose, and that is to enhance business resiliency, and a culture that includes every level of the business in training initiatives is critical to program success. Following the process outlined in this session optimizes the learning environment and assures senior executives that the company resources are going toward a worthy goal. To complete the loop back to business leaders, the training program must include documentation, the after-action report, and suggestions for corrective action. There are several sources out there for suggested documentation, and this one is pulled from the Emergency Management Institute in Emmitsburg, Maryland. Suffice it to say that exercise planning and implementation generates a significant paper trail, but not all of the documents are necessary for every type of exercise, nor are they disseminated to every participant. This table is provided to give you a guide, one that you can tailor to your specific business, your selected exercise, the level of complexity, and the intended audience. The After Action Review, or AAR, is the document that summarizes the key information related to the evaluation of the exercise. It contains an overview or summary of the key elements of the exercise and the performance of the participants in terms of achieving the training objectives. Obviously, the length and content of the AAR depends on the type of exercise and the number of participants, but it should always include an analysis of the core capabilities and the primary mission essential functions that the exercise addressed. Finally, in order to make the training or exercise relevant, corrective actions must be communicated to the appropriate authorities to address either through policy, procedure, or personnel changes. Improvement plans link exercise planners, participants, company leadership, and other stakeholders to utilize information and observations obtained from training and exercises. A follow-up system must also be in place to validate that corrective actions have been implemented. So hopefully now you have an understanding of the characteristics of a formalized training and exercise plan, one that can fit any size business in just about any sector of the community. We reviewed a guide that could be used to ensure your training program has employee buy-in, as well as the support of the executive team. We also looked at the different types of training exercises and their relative complexity and resource commitment. And finally, we situated the training program in the business continuity context and looked at how it is integrated with other strategic business units within the company.